Thanks, Madam Chair. Dear colleagues, and most of all, dear friends in the UK. No matter what is going to be in the deal that might or will hopefully shape the EU-UK relations in the future, one thing is absolutely clear. The best deal the UK could get, and it will stay that way, was to be part of the European Union, to sit here around the table in Brussels and to take decisions together. And no matter what is going to happen in the next days, weeks, months or years ahead, we must always remember our interdependence will always be stronger than Brexit. Our ties will always be stronger than Brexit. And our friendship will always be stronger than Brexit. It is the end of the year and we come close to the end of the transition period. So friends in the UK, so long, for auld lang syne. Ce n'est qu'un au revoir, nos amis. Auf Wiedersehen und hoffentlich bis ganz bald. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now for 2 minutes, Sean Kelly.
Commissioner. Since June of 2016, we've discussed Brexit in largely a similar fashion in this House. We have constantly reiterated our respect for the British people's decision to leave our union. We have constantly reiterated that we would like a close and mutually beneficial relationship, and we have clearly laid out our negotiating positions in a transparent way. Yes, this has not been a smooth process, anything but, in fact, but then that's the norm for divorces. We have witnessed the issue of Brexit dominate the political landscape in the United Kingdom with intense debate and division. And here in the EU, it has never been far from the top of our agenda and has diverted our attention from other key issues. This process has been painstaking and the cause of lingering anxiety. But we are finally beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel. So, colleagues, I urge you not to fall at the final hurdle. We must hold our nerve, trust our excellent negotiators led by the remarkable Michel Barnier, and facilitate in any way we can the final phase of this process. Yes, even if that is provisional application, although this should only be a last resort. Although we stand on the edge, looking nervously at a no deal, we must remember that much progress has been made. We have a formal agreement on how the new RSC border will operate, which will provide businesses and people on our island with clarity and stability, while upholding the integrity of our single market and Good Friday Agreement, which Michel Barnier mentioned. Also, in relation to the internal market bill, which Commissioner Šefčovič negotiated successfully. We have agreement in the vast majority of areas and even have made significant progress on level playing field, but with some very difficult areas in relation to fishing outstanding. However, deal or no deal, there will be significant economic effects. The Brexit Reserve Fund, therefore, must be allocated under clear and fair criteria so that businesses who are most affected by Brexit are given the support they need in a timely manner. This needs to be a priority in our recovery from COVID-19. Happy Christmas to you all. Come on.
Thank you very much. Now for 1.5 minutes, Johan Danielsson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Well, a lot of water has gone under the bridge since David Cameron, almost 8 years ago, took the fatal decision to trigger a referendum on the EU membership to try and win a domestic election. And since then, what we've seen is undoubtedly a tragedy played out in many acts. Now, the drama is starting to reach its conclusion. The only constant here, in positive terms, over these long years of negotiation has been our ability within the EU to stand shoulder to shoulder, our ability to keep calm. And it's important that we continue to carry on like this in the home straight over the finishing line, something that's got us through these difficult times. We need an agreement that will maintain high standards in terms of social standards, environmental standards as well. We have to continue to have good transport connections between the UK and the EU. But this has to be done in a way that does not jeopardise the working conditions for all those who work in the transport sector throughout Europe. I'm very pleased that here today we're going to adopt some provisional contingency measures that will ensure that air and road transport links will be maintained with the UK. But this in no way, shape or form can replace an agreement between the EU and the UK. So to conclude, to our Chief Negotiator, to the EU Commission, keep at it, stick to our principles. We will be behind you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now for 1 minute, Karin Karlsbro.
Fru talman.
Madam President, Brexit is a fact that we'll have to deal with. There are no winners. Really, there are only losers. But our approach to try and deal with the common challenges of COVID, for example, have never been greater. We have to continue to fight the good fight, and the will for all of us to travel, to study in different countries will remain. It's not we who have voted out the UK, it's the UK who's leaving the EU, but they're not leaving Europe. Now what we need and what we expect is an agreement to establish the rules of the game for cooperation and for a common future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now for 1 minute, Anna Cavazzini.
Thank you, Ms. President. First of all, I want to thank Michel Barnier and all the negotiators for their endless effort. Nevertheless, we are in a very uncomfortable situation. We are 2 weeks before the deadline and no one knows what will happen. Yes, it is good that we are still negotiating, and it is good that we could prevent a no deal so far. But this situation we're in is really unacceptable. Business and citizens don't know what will happen. And the European Parliament itself finds it in a very difficult dilemma. Either, if there is a deal, we are creating huge chaos on the 1st of January, or we just give up our scrutiny rights. It is absolutely clear a deal with a strong level playing field is still the best outcome for everyone. But we as the European Parliament, we cannot make a fool of ourselves and just let go out of hand our scrutiny rights. We are not just a rubber stamp institution, and we need proper time. For me, the time until the 28th of December is far too short, and I think we should push for technical prolongation in order to have proper time for scrutiny.
Thank you very much. And now for 2 minutes, Danuta Hübner.
Madam Vice President Šefčovič, colleagues, a big European economy is voluntarily leaving a preferential economic and trade area and the world's biggest and most influential standard-setting and regulatory power. Last Sunday, another negotiation deadline passed with no final outcome. And what we have just heard from Michel Barnier is that on the negotiation table, at least one big and a number of little pieces remain without solution. We continue to be in the no-deal territory, and a failure is still possible. We must be also aware that even if a skinny agreement is better than no deal, it will bring higher level of distortions than a more ambitious deal. And even the most effective preparedness measures will not protect us fully against distortions. The good news here is the agreement reached on the full and timely implementation of the withdrawal agreement, and my appreciation goes to Maroš Šefčovič and his team, but we still have to understand better how and to what extent it is warranted that there are no risks there. I support the Commission's attempts to keep negotiations alive as long as there is a chance for agreement. No deal has never been our option, especially in the midst of the current crisis. But negotiating under tremendous time pressure cannot lead to an agreement at any cost. I also expect from the British government that sovereignty argument will not become a pretext for a no-deal calamity. As most of us here, I am concerned about the consent process. So far, we have stayed calm and carried on, but the proposed new deadline stretches beyond what normally we would be ready to accept. we will be deprived of our basic rights related to international agreements. Paradoxically, the pandemic helps us organise a last-minute remote plenary meeting, but evidently there is no time for any responsible scrutiny of the text. So let me finish by saying that in opening ourselves at the cost of our democratic prerogatives to this unprecedented flexibility, the Parliament shows its willingness to pay this price because achieving agreement on future partnership will allow us to keep conversation over the channel in the long term, and this is a price worth paying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danuta. Now for 1.5 minutes, Clara Aguilera.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, President. I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Barnier for the very good work that he's done and thanking all of his team as well. I think they've done the best job that it was possible to do. However, colleagues, it's not easy. We are and have been facing negotiations with a British Prime Minister who has been extremely firm. It's never going to be easy. However, I do want there to be an agreement, even though we only have a couple of days left. But above all, I want to pass on the voice of farmers and businesses, a great number of people who are facing a lot of uncertainty. But as the fisheries spokesperson for my group, I want to speak on behalf of the 1.5 million people who are directly affected by the fact, or if there's not to be a deal. What I want to say and say to the Commission, yes, let's do everything we can for an agreement, but we can't forget the fisheries sector and we can't leave them behind, because we know that this is a symbol of a hard Brexit for the British to recover sovereignty of their waters. We have to remember the fisheries sector, and I ask all of you to do the same. Thank you very much.
1 minute, Samira Rafaela.
President, I would like to thank Vice President Šefčovič and Mr. Barnier for their continued efforts. The UK will remain an important partner and friend of the EU. Therefore, the ultimate goal should always be a comprehensive agreement reflecting our close relationship. But the new free trade agreement must be based on reciprocity and a fair system of rules. As we head towards the last and very real Brexit deadline, I cannot overstate the growing frustration in the EU. We are dealing with a lot of uncertainty caused by pressure from a strict deadline that the UK set itself. As I can see in the Netherlands, exporters are already facing long queues at Calais to cross the channel. And as MEPs, we need to be able to explain to our citizens and businesses what they can expect from 1st of January. Therefore, we need sufficient time for scrutiny in case of a deal. This is part of our responsibility towards citizens and businesses who need clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Now for 1.5 minutes, Francisco Mianmon.
Thank you. I very much hope that the negotiators will reach an ambitious agreement as quickly as possible, which takes account of the historic links between the EU and the UK. However, the main issue is fishing, as both parties have recalled, and as we saw in the 2019 political declaration. We were supposed to have a fisheries agreement before the 1st of June this year, at just 13 days before the end of the transition period. It's a sad paradox that not only do we not have a fisheries agreement, but fisheries still is the main stumbling block in negotiations. Mr. Barnier knows that he has all of the support of this House. But he needs to reach an agreement that will meet fishers' requirements. To do that, we need to have ambition. There are a lot of jobs and investments at stake here. Our fishermen have been fishing in British waters for many years now. There are a lot of fisheries and seafood products that go directly from the UK to European markets every day. we've always placed special importance on the access of fisheries products to markets. We can't forget the European fisheries sector. They need to have a clear agreement. In any case, deal or no deal, the EU has to be prepared for any eventuality, and including the contingency measures that we're voting on today. I would also urge the Commission, please, to redouble your efforts in order to ensure that the Brexit Adjustment Fund is implemented as quickly as possible. This fund should pay particular attention to the fisheries sector and coastal communities, and in particular in Galicia.
First speaker for 1 minute is Mr. Ruiz de Veza.
Thank you very much, Madam President, colleagues. I think we're facing two basic problems. One is to reach an agreement between the end of the transition period, but also to have sufficient time for parliamentary scrutiny before the end of the transition period. And this second point is very important because I'm afraid that this seems to have been, at least according to the public information we have in the media, an afterthought also for our negotiators, because it has never featured that we had to get this agreement before the end of the year, but also with sufficient time for parliamentary scrutiny. So I think this should be made now a clear part of this last step of the negotiations. And if there is no sufficient time for an agreement before the end of the year with sufficient parliamentary scrutiny, we have to make sure there is no chaos on the 1st of January, and we have to make part of the negotiations to agree to mutual maintaining of the statu quo on both sides of the channel while we complete the negotiation and the parliamentary scrutiny. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Luis Garicano for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioner. Today, we mark the end of a chapter. 4.5 years after the Brexit vote, blindness has finally triumphed. Even before the divorce is complete, we can see the looming catastrophe. Lorries queue for 24 hours in Dover. Tourists will lose insurance, delays and passport stamps in Eurostar. Dear British friends, is this what you voted for? Passport stamps and lorry queues? This moment is a victory for Europe. There can be no clear vindication of the European project. The farce that it is a European nation alone, outside of the EU, is being exposed. To my British friends, I say, politics may change, but geography will not change. The future shall only be less kind to a small island on the periphery of the world's largest trading bloc. I am afraid you'll soon discover that you're neither having your cake nor eating it. And when you inevitably come back, there will be no pound, no preferential treatment. These are the consequences of the choices you made. Until then, good luck.
Thank you very much. And now Enika Győri for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Tisztelt képviselőtársaim! Senki nem gondolta volna.
Thank you, colleagues. No one would have thought that a week before Christmas we still wouldn't know what conditions the UK would leave the European Union by. The British decided on withdrawal in 2016, and that decision we must respect. It's not about revenge, it's not about unfulfillable conditions. I'm confident that the Commission in the final phase will act on that basis. Both parties must know that it's not just about rights but also about duties, and a divorce is always painful. In the interests of good neighbourly relations, it's important that we negotiate a good agreement. will continue to be pragmatic and realistic on that. And if we have an agreement, then the member states, the Parliament and Council must do their utmost to ensure that the agreement is implemented. With or without an agreement on the 1st of January, there will be problems at the borders, in transport, in traffic. Companies in the EU must absolutely be informed so that they can securely prepare for the mess. The UK and the EU must do everything they can to ensure that citizens feel secure, and companies too. We must minimise the damage. The withdrawal is going to be a problem for the UK and the EU.
Thank you very much, President. This parliamentary year is not being concluded with a nice debate, unfortunately, although there might be a possibility to get a deal, in which case we'll be back after Christmas, and to sign the deal. But achieving that deal seems to be all except easy. And this agreement and these negotiations are putting relations between us and the UK under pressure. For me, it's clear that after Brexit, we have to have a level playing field between the EU and the UK. That has to be guaranteed. And we have to have decent working conditions and manage those conditions, including after Brexit. Brexit must not lead to deregulation of the British labour market, because honest is honest. No 0 hours contract, unstable contracts seem to be the standard in the UK now. I don't think Mr Johnson is intending to make that better. In fact, he may well make it worse. And if they want to have access to the European market, then we have to demand that they protect their workers, they give their workers decent conditions, including European workers and Dutch workers.
Minute Hilde Woutmans.
President, ladies and gentlemen, as far as I'm concerned, Brexit was a very silly decision. We are not in control of the document that's been signed, because it hasn't been signed yet by Mr Johnson and others, but we do have our intentions. Our single market is worth 14 billion euros, the British market 2 billion. We have almost 500 million consumers, they have 60 million. So any discussion of national sovereignty is not really going to hold a candle against that. And that's why the level playing field, ladies and gentlemen, is not something we'll ever give up. We're going to maintain our support for our companies. We are going to take as a point of departure our strong position. We're going to defend our companies, our fishers, our students. Madam President, I think I can speak on behalf of the whole of this Parliament when I say that we are standing as a man behind Mr Barnier, because our strength is in our union. Union fait la force. I think you'd even understand that in the UK.
Very much. Now for 1.5 minutes, Jürgen Warborn.
Thank you, Madam President. Now I'm standing here before you is exactly 2 weeks before the UK spends its first day outside the EU, and we still do not have an agreement, something that I obviously regret. Great Britain is not only an important neighbour and trade partner, but we need to have close relations, as close as possible. And I'm afraid of what a hard Brexit would mean, not least for small companies, which can constitute the backbone of our European economy. We know that they're not prepared sufficiently for this chaotic situation which is looming. Now, it's easy for politicians to say prepare, but it's very difficult if you don't know what you're preparing for. Now, big companies have more experience with working with third countries, but it's much more difficult for smaller companies. Now, the Commission will have to do everything to facilitate, not least for small companies, so that flows of trade can continue between the EU and the UK. The European Parliament put forward our recommendations in a resolution last summer. In that resolution, we underscored the fact that the Commission has to pay special attention to small companies, amongst other things by establishing contact points for SMEs, but also to try and relieve the red tape so that the administrative burden is as little as possible. But seeing as we haven't heard that that will constitute any problems in the negotiations, I hope and assume that we have achieved our goals on those particular points in the negotiations. If that's not the case, it would be nice to hear. I'd like to conclude by wishing the President, the Commissioner, Michel Barnier, and all my colleagues a wonderful Christmas, and I certainly hope that we will see each other again in the days between Christmas and New Year to scrutinise a concluded agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now for 1 minute, Tonino Pizzula.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we are reaching the end of this turbulent year with the last-minute negotiations, I welcome yesterday's conclusions on the withdrawal agreement, notably guaranteeing the rights of the EU and the UK citizens. It's vital to preserve the rights of citizens currently in the European Union and the UK, but I regret that the highest price will be paid by our citizens in the future. The UK has been a member of the European Union for 47 years, helping the development of our Union despite conflicting positions on some issues. However, time is running out, and we as a European Union need to preserve our values, commitments and our integrity. I expect the UK side to respect it as well. Finally, allow me to stress the role of the European Parliament and the need for scrutiny, having in mind our tremendous patience so far. However, only mutual trust can build sustainable bridges for our future cooperation in the ever-challenging future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pizzula. Next for 1 minute is Billy Kelleher.
Thank you, Madam President. Firstly, I'm an optimist, so I still hope that there can be a deal, and I believe there should be a deal. Bear in mind, if we fail to reach an agreement between the European Union and the UK, it will have been a failure of politics and diplomacy. But equally, it will have failed livelihoods across the European Union, coastal communities in Ireland and France and Spain, people working in factories in Germany, and people whose livelihoods will be impacted in the UK as well. So, for all our sakes, I urge everybody involved to ensure that there's goodwill in these last few hours of negotiations to protect the livelihoods of European citizens. I also want to put on the record my great appreciation to the Commission and to Michel Barnier, who is a household name in Ireland at this stage, for the support and effort that he put into ensuring that the Northern Ireland Protocol and the challenging issues and the unique circumstances on the island of Ireland were very much addressed. And I thank the European Union and this Parliament for its solidarity with the Irish people as well in the context of Brexit negotiations. So we have just but hours, but these hours are crucial because they could set in train years of dissent between the UK and the European Union if we cannot come to an agreement in everybody's interest. I wish you well, and I wish the people of Europe a happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next for 2 minutes is Mr. Bellamy.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam President, here we are in the final straight of these negotiations, just 10 hours before the deadline and a few hours left to use. Now, I don't understand in this debate why we have some people entering theoretical discussions replaying Brexit. the failure in the negotiations being a lesson either for the British or for the EU, or are simply trying to discuss the position of our institution in the system. I think what we need to do is to pursue the interests of the citizens of our countries right down to the wire. For them, for us, for our British friends, we need to give every opportunity for an agreement right down to the end. This will be crucial for the geopolitical balance of the world of tomorrow, vital for the protection of our economies, which are hard racked by the current COVID crisis. And we have to avoid the breakdown in industrial relations and a body blow to the agricultural sector. A tragic situation for the fisheries sector, how can we not mention? And also for British fishermen who will lose their sales outlets. There are so many jobs from Bologna to Lorient, from Zeebrugge to Rotterdam. So much depends on this activity and its historical links with the sharing of our waters. Lives are at stake here, and that's the only thing that should count in the final days. Thanks to our negotiating team, fisheries has never been an adjustment variable in the discussions, and it must remain a priority right down to the last minute. We know how we can rely on Michel Barnier for that. The uncertainty we're in finally obliges us to put in place every contingency. We've put in place accelerated contingency measures, which is necessary to support a scenario of a no-deal breakdown. But we need to look for solutions for the major crisis that might occur. And Commissioner, we need to move fast on that. There's a twofold need: effectiveness and transparency. We are prepared to keep talking non-stop until January to come up with specific solutions for all those who will be directly affected in the front line of a no-deal Brexit.
The next for 1 minute is Pierre Karleskind.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President, Vice President of the Commission. Now, of course, we're voting on these emergency measures for fisheries and transport. Although when I say fisheries, we're not sure what to expect from these. If they're better than nothing, they're not really going to solve much. And if there is no deal, then it's going to be the UK putting us in a position where they decide what they do, who comes, who fishes, without any decision-making for the European fishermen. And it will be a situation where we're negotiating all the time, whereby one whole industrial sector will not be responsible for their lives or their survival. We've seen this over the last 3 years. Investment hasn't been made in this sector, in the fishery sector. We need to have a sustainable, balanced, long-term agreement, and that's what Michel Barnier is working on. There'll be a new phase opening tomorrow, and we have to stick to this position. If there is a no deal, then the emergency measures should not go on endlessly. We can't be in a situation where whatever we've agreed will be questioned from one day to the next. We have to ensure that this sector is seen and has visibility. Thank you.
And now, finally, in the name of the Commission, Vice President Šefčovič.